Boom. You got ad slick up?
I see the ad.
Cool. Hey, everybody. You're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy, and we have lied to you for ages, and I apologize to you for lying. I've been saying that this is show number 194, and the real truth is this the show 195, because Randy and I, maybe my doing, I listed the original show, I listed it as show 0. I think that's because of what happened when we did show 0, Randy. Nobody showed up. Hey, everybody. Again, Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Those who don't know, I'm Teddy. Our special guest today is our friend Oriel Hope, and she's here to help us make a full circle out of this whole thing. My special guest, my buddy, my partner in crime is Mr. Randy Wooden, and we appreciate every single one of you who've showed up to join us over the years, and all of you who have showed up to participate in the last show. We're at 15,000 people in the audience, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I wrote down our numbers. And we appreciate you all showing up. So, Randy, did I get everything running right, dude?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I got us up and running.
You're getting better at doing this. You know, I give you less time, and you manage to pull it off every time. I give you less time.
Do more with less.
Yeah.
Randy Wooden with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina, director for our professional center, based here in Winston-Salem, and happy to help if you're a job hunter and you're kind of thinking this is the year that we're going to make it happen. And so whether you're currently employed and looking, or unemployed and getting ready to get after it first of the year, happy to help. Get on the calendar. We're free, which is nice, and paid my salary, my exorbitant salary, Teddy, is paid for as part of the retail store dollars that come in. So shop, donate, end of the year, you get your tax write-off, and so that's a good thing for you. Anyway, every Wednesday, Teddy and I get together. Been doing it for almost 4 years now. We get together on Wednesday at noon, have a little fun, learn some stuff. And today is maybe an exception. Oriel Hope rejoins us.
Yes.
The very first guest we had, and I guess that was show number 2 then?
No, well, yeah,
3.
Really number 2. I called it number 1.
So you were our very first special guest, so I asked you to come back in from beginning to end. And Oriel Hope, Oriel, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more as far as what you do and whatnot, and a quick reminder, if you have comments or questions, memories, fun things, you name it, put them in the chat. This is going to be an ad lib hour, and we'll see where it goes. Teddy's got his drink all lined up, his grape knee-high or whatever that is.
Scotch.
Okay, I'm off today, Teddy. But just to let you know, this is not there's no alcohol in this.
But it is 12:03, dude.
That's the afternoon.
And HR doesn't care.
Not this week.
That's strictly water.
Oriel, say hi and introduce yourself to our folks.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Teddy and Randy. It is a pleasure to be back with you today. Again, my name is Oriel Hope. I am Director of Human Resources and Benefits and Title IX Coordinator at Salem Academy and College right here in Winston-Salem. So again, I'm excited to be with you today. I also bring greetings to you on behalf of Winston-Salem Society for Human Resource Management as well. So I have to definitely put that plug in to all of our SHRM folks out there today as well. A little bit about myself. So I've been at Salem now about 2 years, a little over 2 years. I've been in human resources for over 16 years, started out many moons ago in mental health care, went on to senior living. Most recently, before joining Salem, I was at a housing authority, a local housing authority here in North Carolina. So I'm definitely glad to be here, glad to take a look back through the years. I'm excited and also honored that you asked me to join you for such a fun reflection.
We're gonna have a little fun today. I took the liberty of putting together some of the guests and kind of lumping them into different categories and maybe to kind of spur on our thoughts. And just a disclaimer right off the bat. I'm sure we've done almost 200 shows. And if I've left someone out, trust me, it was inadvertent. And we're doing our best here, but a lot of good times, Teddy, my friend, and Oriel, the same here. So let's relive a few of those. Oriel, we're kind of lean on you a little bit to help guide us but we'll take it from there and just kind of riff this whole thing.
Oh, I have lots of questions.
Okay, give it a run. Let's go.
But I want to take us back a little bit.
Yeah.
Tell us how you and Teddy met. Like, how did you come to be? How did this idea develop?
Had nothing to do with ankle bracelets or Tinder, Dale. I'll tell you how Randy and I met, and then Randy can tell you how the show got started.
Yeah.
Randy and I met. I came into North Carolina in 1997. You came around 2000.
Yep, 2000. Yep.
Yeah, and I was in 1997. I was working for a company called the Bud Group, and I was not real active back then, but I was a fairly active networker. And Randy's in town, and he becomes a networker, and we had friends that just said, "Hey, you two need to say hi." I remember one day I came down to Broyhill, and met Randy at the Broyhill Center in Clemens, North by God, Carolina. And Randy invited me to be a guest in a movie he put together.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was the top billing actor in that movie. I'm pretty sure in my mind I was. So anyway, we met through Clemens. Somebody introduced us, and we started talking, and it just stayed in touch and kept growing and growing and get involved in more and more stuff together forever. I mean, all the time.
Yeah. So. And also, Teddy, I've been with Goodwill since 2012, and they had been a client of yours. So you would come in and help with the Business Advisory Council. You did a number of seminars on how to network and so forth. So we got to engage, and you helped us at the Professional Center. So did Oriel.
Yeah.
When we would remember those group events, mock interviews, and panel discussions, all kind of stuff.
Yes.
And so our heart's kind of in the same vein here of trying to help all three of us help job hunters. And so one thing kind of led to the other, and we've kept in close contact over the years. And then COVID hit. Oh gosh, March, April of 2020.
Yeah.
Sound about right? Yeah. And, I was still, again, paid my exorbitant salary, but I was sent home. And I'm not the most clever technical guy going, but I called Teddy, who I think you also basically your business dried up. I mean, it went away, right? All your in-person stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it went quiet for about 3 or 4 months, and then the virtual stuff started picking up.
Yep. So I gave you a call. I don't know. First, I think it was on a Tuesday or something like that, and we said, "Hey, let's figure out a show about job hunting, since everybody needs a job. Everybody got laid off pretty much, and so that's how it got started." I called you. And because you're a heavy tech guy, you took care of the Zoom and setting up everything and all. I just have to show up. Yeah. So you do all the work. And so anyway, so we thought, well, let's get together and we'll do a show on job hunt stuff. So you and I just shot the breeze for about an hour.
That show's on YouTube.
It's way at the bottom. If you scroll way down, you'll see it.
At the bottom, but it's had 200,000. Remember, divided by 1,000. It's had 200,000 views, Randy.
Yeah. Plus, we've got a lot of stuff on LinkedIn and Facebook too, because it was like, who are these guys? What are they doing? This is something new.
Yeah.
We have a lot of friends. Yeah.
So Randy, what would you say what would you say the why of starting the show is?
He got lonely.
Lonely at home, but I mean, there were several whys. One was just to try something new. I'm an old radio guy, and so for me, the whole interview and shooting the breeze and ad-libbing and all that's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah.
But we knew that there was a need for the show. There was a need to reach out to people who were landlocked at home, and out of a job, and scared. I mean, let's face it; it was a bloodbath.
So what was the original format of the show?
Just basically
show number one was Randy and I talking to each other publicly on the internet. And we quickly figured out people do not want to come and hear these two old white guys talking. We knew that.
They do.
No, I get that. We can have fun, but Randy and I, Ariel, daggone well, we believe in creating value, So we knew I don't know how we figured it out, Randy, but we quickly figured out that week, we better bring somebody else in here. And
Yeah, I mean, part of it too is just, I mean, how much do you want to talk about? You can only talk about the two of us. I mean, we did everything, talked about LinkedIn, we talked about networking, and I
Right.
mean, at some point, people go, "Hey, I've seen that movie a few times," and so we thought, well, why not bring in an outside person who has a special, unique skill or story to tell or information to share? And
Mhm.
again, given the state of the economy and whatnot, reached out to you to say, hey, come on in and share from an HR perspective. And also, I think you were a job hunter back then, weren't you?
I was, that's interesting. I
Yep.
was looking for employment. So the story was everything that I've always done, and you're familiar with this, Randy, with Goodwill. Everything that I spoke about on that first show was something I too was
And through.
experiencing. And one of the things that I really wanted to be sure that I put out there to all of the viewers is not to give up, to really
Mhm.
take a moment, reflect on your why, what it is that you really want to do and accomplish, but don't give up. So I do remember that specifically.
Yeah. Hey, Chan and Todd chimed in, and Chan reminded me that, about the same time that Randy and I started the show, I started helping my buddies in Greensboro, the Triad Career Network. They were meeting in person as well. That went cold. It took me a few months, I think, to convince the leaders of that group, and Chan knows what I'm talking about, to go virtual. But then it went virtual, and I think today it still is virtual. So it was fun for me to be a part of that as well. And then Todd's asking, what was the one guest that had us stop and we went speechless with what we learned? I don't know if I clearly have that.
Well, that was me.
Other than Oreo, I mean,
Well,
other than
yeah,
Oreo, and
it's pretty
Cindy and Todd and who else is on here, but
pretty hard to shut us up, Teddy. I mean, realistically, it's hard to. You may
yeah,
get one of us. You're not going to get both of us. So
yeah, and Melissa, I was saying Melissa Hughes because she's on here too.
Right, all of us.
Yeah,
yeah, Melissa was one of my favorite guests. I just am enthralled about the brain and how things work, and we learned about imposter syndrome and why and
yeah.
how restaurants make their menu out to influence how we purchase and all
Mhm.
that fascinating stuff. So and again, these shows all live on YouTube, so if you can go back and watch them. I had a bunch of people at work actually that wanted to go back and watch her shows because they had the same interest that I do. So it's a dopamine rush.
Yeah,
Well, there you go.
yeah.
But that's how the show started. There was a need. We were both sitting home. This whole Zoom thing was kind of a new thing. And so we thought, let's give it a run. So we did it for a week and we thought, let's bring in some extra spice here and bring in guests every week. So that's how it all got started.
So thank you for sharing. That's really interesting. Another thing, that was a really good question
Mhm.
about who were some of the impactful speakers there. But tell us how the topics changed over time. Because as I'm thinking back, you had topics about job searching. There were things about maybe locations, veterans. You had a lot of CEOs on. So how did you pick your topics and how did they change over time?
If somebody walked by me and they could talk and they had a heartbeat, I said, "Do you want to be on the show?" No, that's not how it worked. I will tell you that originally we were focused on job seekers. And so if you look at our early special guests, most of those were focused
Yep.
to, looking for a job, networking, resumes, LinkedIn, working with recruiters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we asked a question of everybody who registers to be on the show. And one of the questions is, are you looking for a job? And then at some point, we started seeing that the percentage of people looking for a job was diminishing.
Okay.
And so Randy and I, in our infinite wisdom that we so collect and have in
It's
my mind,
infinite.
yeah, we said, wait a minute, if our audience is changing, we need to change our conversations. So that's when we said, I use the term, let's find more people related to business, community,
Mhm.
more interesting topics beyond just job seekers. And every week, Randy and I would stop and talk for a little bit, and we had a list of potential speakers or potential topics, and we worked that list to go find those people. So
Yeah. We actually got ahead. We were about a good 2 to 3, sometimes a little more months ahead of things. So we actually had people reach out to us and say, "Hey, I've heard about the show. I'd like to be on it. I think I've got some cool stuff to talk about." And Daniel asked whether we got feedback from job hunters that gained knowledge from our shows. And I think anecdotally, yeah, I can remember a few clients
yeah,
that say, "Hey, I really enjoyed your show." But it wasn't that they enjoyed Teddy and me, it was they enjoyed the guest. They enjoyed the topic and they learned something from what I'll call a specialist, especially recruiters, because there's a mystery around that. People think the recruiters are working for, well, you know, the whole thing. And to get it straight from a recruiter, to be candid, honest, here are the things that you need to be doing if you're a job hunter. And that was useful. It's one thing to hear it from Teddy or me, but to hear it from them, I think it's sort of like hearing it from your football coach instead of your mom or dad. When your football coach tells you something, you take it to heart, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. And you know what, to answer that question too, as a speaker, I have had people link in with me, send me messages, continue to seek advice on certain things, and then also keep me posted about where they are in their job search. So I definitely see the value in your show, and I know it reached a lot of people.
Randy and I know in our minds that the special guest of our show, this is the pivotal point in their careers just to be on our show. We know that in our minds.
We
Oh,
remind
it
them of
is,
that
of
every week.
course. I can't tell you how many offers and things I've booked since being on your show. So and look at me now, I'm back on it. So hey, so that is wonderful. Teddy, share some numbers with us, like from your first show till now. Share numbers. What are the viewers looking like?
It would have been wise for me to go do some research then to answer that question, wouldn't it?
Mm.
What would you say off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, i.e. from the spreadsheet that I went and did that research on. All right, here's the numbers. Where are where is it? Okay, so Randy, where is those? No, here we go.
Now, does that go back? It doesn't go back to the beginning of the show, I think. Doesn't it just go back?
I had to do some research to make this work out right, but
Oh, we did. Okay.
here's what I got. I mean, this is pretty close. It's not exactly, so I had to round it all off. So every week we average 15 people, 15,000 people in the audience, which and there are some months where it was way higher and some where it wasn't, but that is the average, which means we had close to 2.9 million people in the audience. Remember, divide by 1,000. But that was just in the audience. Now, these are actual numbers from YouTube, the podcast, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Here's what I got. 7 million views on YouTube. Divide by 1,000. Podcast downloads. Let me drop the 1,000. I'll go back to actual numbers. 6,000 podcast downloads. And by the way, I started the podcast late. I don't think there's more than 100 episodes on the podcast.
Wow.
Facebook views, okay, 11,000, and these are actual numbers, 11,000 Facebook views. LinkedIn impressions, that means the video or the show showed up in their newsfeed. And these are actual numbers, 114,000 LinkedIn impressions. That's pretty decent. If you take the number of people in the audience, 2,900, and the YouTube, podcast, Facebook, LinkedIn impression, the total set of eyeballs, I'm going to go back to the inflated number. The total set of eyeballs is 142 million.
Hey, Teddy, also, does that count on my Facebook page and my LinkedIn? I don't think it does.
Not your Facebook, but it does count the LinkedIn impressions.
Even though it's on my page and not yours.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so with Randy's Facebook, we're well into the billion eyeballs. And I'm being facetious. The real numbers are about 142,000 people have seen the 194 episodes that we have produced.
And point out too, and in I don't work in the biz, and so my job is not to secure guests and set it like you watch on TV where it looks so smooth and the guest comes on. I mean, there's a staff of people that line this stuff up. Teddy's got a regular job, and so do I. And it was something that we do in addition to that. It's one of the reasons we do it at lunchtime, so that if you are working and not just simply out of a job and looking, but you can check it out live if you wanted to. That's why we did it at lunchtime. And Teddy, how did I end up getting top bill in this thing anyway? Do you remember how that came about?
I don't know. I think that you wanted more money, and I told you I wasn't paying you any more money, and you
That's
got all
right.
snippy with me, and I'm like, dude, take it or leave it, man. I got other people who want to do this. I'm being stupid. I think
Just rolls off the tongue
well, yeah,
better.
that's what you kept saying when we were naming the show.
Well, it's funny you're laughing at this, but I honestly support Randy. I mean, you do have that column in the paper and everything. I think he should have given you more money.
Yeah, well, I've been after him. That's the running gag, and some of our guests, they don't know that, so I started telling them ahead of time that that's been a running gag, that I work for Teddy, and I'm always hitting him up for a raise, and whether he'll expense my case of beer or whatever.
Yeah.
And all I get is talk to HR. It's not in the budget, and we'll discuss it later. So
I should have advocated for you more, Randy. I'm sorry. I've been a horrible friend.
Yeah, but
well,
Carol, I know how to manage HR, so bring it on.
Yeah, but back, on a serious note, though, it does take time to secure the guests, and that's, I mean, that is what it is. We do that, and then, as you know, Oriel, Teddy's put together a document, so we have you fill out some background information. So we've got that, talking points. We review what we want to talk about in broad terms ahead of time, and then there's the whole actual show itself, and then Teddy doing the upload, and we push it out to social media and podcasts and everything else. So I don't know, hours wise, how many hours a week, Teddy, would you say you spend apart from the actual show? What, couple, 3 maybe?
I would say on average about 3 hours a week. It's every show, we show up a half an hour early to do an hour show.
Yeah.
And then at 1 o'clock, I work till about 2:15. And you can go look at the emails, Randy. When I send that last email out, I'm done. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That last email that has, here's the website, here's the podcast, here's the LinkedIn, go away and leave me alone until next week. I don't think I use those words, but
Well, yeah.
Well, that kind of goes along with the question that we had, 195 hours of broadcasting is one thing, but how many prep hours and everything else would you say? So you kind of alluded to some of that. Can you give us a little bit more details there?
Well, I think for me, it's I've always estimated about 4 hours a week on average for me to do the show. I mean, there are some weeks where Randy and I are both busting butt to get sponsors. I mean, we've reached out to some sponsors, and Randy remembers this, that it takes 5 conversations. And then some that we reached out to, we have to go through their handlers. These are the higher level special guests, like Oriel Hope and Mayor Allen Joins and Nancy Vaughn.
Right up there with the mayor. I'm getting up there.
There you go.
It's because of you guys and this show.
Well, plus, and I always promote it a couple of times a week on Facebook and LinkedIn. I promote it. And then after it airs, I push it back out on my social media. And then I need to record some statistics within Goodwill for those people that Teddy had mentioned. If you're on the Zoom call and you've self-acknowledged as in a job search, then I need to enter that information into our Goodwill database as essentially a client served.
Yeah.
And so all those things take time, but the fun part is the doing part is the hour. And it's a highlight of my week, and I'll miss it. And we'll get to it later about some of the why behind why it's kind of come to an end. And again, nothing negative, nefarious. We don't have one of those Hollywood splits, or we're gonna go see other people, or none of that stuff. So it's all good stuff, and we've got some other projects we're going to be looking at down the road.
So I have a question for you both. I want to stop right now, but I heard you mention sponsors. Can you talk about some of the wonderful sponsors that have helped you, and who, just anything you'd like to say to them right now as well?
Teddy, well,
Go ahead, but you lead it. Yeah, yeah.
We've had I think 3 sponsors. Brookmead Holdings, they were our very first sponsor, and that really just came out of the blue. A
To a
few,
buddy.
yeah. I mean, well, Melvin Scales
Yeah.
is behind that, and Melvin's a good friend, and I think he'd watched a few of the shows and said, "I'd like to get involved." So that was good, and then we also had 2 other, and so it wasn't continuous that we had a sponsor for each week, but then we also added Elder Law Firm.
Yep, they were good.
And that came as a referral from one of our former special guests, Robert Garcia.
Yeah, yeah.
Who is good friends and had been in hospice, working for hospice. And so Elder Law Firm came into play there. And so they had that relationship. And then Carrie Niblack had come on board. She'd been here locally, CEO of a company, and then pivoted to Blackwell Captive Solutions out in Indiana.
Okay.
And she was a guest.
And all three of them just basically said, I want to help you.
Yeah.
That's
They
wonderful.
weren't looking for transactional advertising, which
Yeah.
Randy and I agreed, we didn't want transactional advertising. That would, where they show up and they get number of email addresses or call. That's not what we wanted to be. We wanted people to help us do this community show. And all 3 of those said, count me in, I want to help.
But that also speaks volumes to you and Randy as well, and just the value of information that you gave. Someone in the chat, I think it's Dale, said that that's 800 volunteer hours. Shame you couldn't get some type of tax credit for your hard work. But when you think about it, you all, I mean, the work that you do, that is many hours of preparation, of just planning, getting the sponsors, but everything that you do has reached someone. And by the stats that you mentioned, Teddy, it shows that people watch the show as well. So I imagine there are going to be a lot of people that are going to miss you all.
Yeah,
and
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing with the column that, well, now I used to write in the Winston-Salem Journal. People will come up to me and they'll go, "Hey man, I really enjoy reading this stuff." Or, "Hey," and I've had several people that, again, we don't necessarily know who is watching unless they have registered through Zoom and are an attendee on the call. But all the people that check it out on YouTube and the podcast, and everything, we don't know the names of these folks.
Right.
And I'll be out at a big box store that ends in Mart and starts with W or elsewhere. And
we can't say their name out loud because then we'd have to charge them for the ad spot.
Yeah, it's not in the budget, Teddy. So, but point is, just out of the blue, people say, "Hey man, I really enjoy that." And so that's all, it's great. And there's, just as a side note, Teddy, and I know we're getting to the half-hour break, but you want to do it now, or you want to?
Oh, screw the damn break, man.
We don't need no stinking break.
It's your last show.
But I will say this, that because some people had asked, what are some, I don't know, fun things. We're going to talk about some of the guests we've had and some of the different topics and memories and such. But I don't know how you feel about this, Teddy, but to be very, candid about this, is as a kid growing up, you wonder, do you fit in? Do you measure up? Are you legit? And as you get older, you as a younger person, you look up to those in authority, those at the director, the VP level, the president, the CEO, the politicians, and all that. And now that we're in our golden years, Oriel's not there yet, but now that you and I are, we are them. And
I'll be joining you soon.
Has AARP found you yet? If not, they're
a couple weeks, and I'm excited too. I keep looking for my emails. It's only $12 a year. Anyway,
it's maybe not even that anymore. But one thing that I won't say amazed me, but made me feel like I belong is the quality of the guests that we're able to get. And, you think about, we're just 2 dudes, just, 2 guys just sitting there babbling away. But to get the caliber of guests that's be able to get that on a consistent basis, that kind of says, hey, we made it, we belong. Yeah. And, we have something of value for them as a way to get their message out. but also it was really just kind of a nice awareness thing for me. Ted, I don't know about, you want to comment on that or not?
Yeah,
That,
well, remember, we
Yeah.
brought in mayors, we've talked to
Yeah.
the big organizations in town, the big hospital organizations, you know, and had great we didn't get them all on. We had great conversations with them. And I'm going to screw it up, but I can't remember which hospital organization we brought in. And I have it over here, and I actually remember the lady's name, but I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. But you know, when we talked to Alan Joins' office, and he said, "Count me in, Teddy." You know, that was pretty cool. And Nancy Vaughn, you know, again, the moment you bring in a big name person, it's easier to get the next big name person. And when they all heard that we started with Oriole Hope, it was over. We had anything we wanted. Yeah, Marissa Michaels was from Nevada. Thank you, Chip, for reminding me, buddy.
Thanks, Chip. Yeah.
You know, yeah.
So it was really cool.
thank
Hey,
you.
you know, Teddy, I'm going to do the halfway break because I've never done it unless you were away.
Go ahead, buddy.
And you've only missed, I'm going to say 3 or 4 shows max.
Maybe 3.
Maybe now I've missed maybe 10 or 12, but that was.
Oh, I got that in the HR documents in your file.
Of course, I should have known. But yeah, I had Leadership Winston going on, and they met. And Oriole, as you know, they unless something changed, they meet on Wednesdays for their education day and all the other days and so forth. So there were times where I had to bail on you. But we're halfway through the final episode of Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy.
Right.
There's Teddy over there. There's Randy. And Oriole Hope is our special guest and kind of our moderator today. And so good stuff. We're learning a little bit about how the show started. We're talking about some of our guests and just, and by the way, if you have comments or questions, maybe memories, I don't know, just whatever. You want to tell a joke? Whatever. Throw them in there.
On here. Thank you, Carrie, for being a part of
it. Carrie. Yeah. Yeah. What you got?
Marissa?
Yep.
I'm sorry, Oriole.
So thank you. So I wanted to talk more about some of the special guests that you've had. Now, you've mentioned the mayor, you've mentioned Nancy Vaughn. Talk to me a little bit about the veterans that you've had on the show. Yeah, that had to have been a great conversation.
Yeah. We've had a couple different shows that have had veterans on there. Let's see, Nikkei Roach, Larry
Laxton. Yeah.
Larry Laxton. Those two were on most recently for Veterans Day.
Yep.
Michelle Bullock, was Michelle Bullock one or?
Yeah, Michelle and Jennifer Carter and Don Massera. They were on.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Nikkei and Larry coming on, that's the closest I ever came to crying on the show. And they reminisced about tough times and the brotherhood and many of the challenges and you know, memories from having served in. Larry served the Vietnam era. Desert Storm was Nikkei's era.
Wow.
But regardless of when they served, there was that bond and you could see it. Nikkei was this close. He says, "Man," he said, "I got to maintain." But anyway, that was I kind of chills thinking about it. And
that was wonderful for them to share their stories and experiences.
Yeah.
That is really well. You also had Art Gibble on at some point. Yeah.
So Art used to be Randy's boss.
I remember.
But wait a minute. But Art was also, and our 17,000 people in the audience may not know this, but I used to be a member of a book club. Yeah, I used to go it was once a month. We'd have a book club. Now, book club is a little different for me than it is for most people. Maybe not so different. You know, it's a bunch of dudes got together. We did read a book. Somebody would recommend a book. And Art was a part of that. So I used to hang out with Art Gibble at book club.
Oh, wow. Randy, how was that with him being your boss and having him on the show?
Well, he was very hands-on and helped us when we did the Schmoozapalooza. Remember that in the summertime at Goodwill? It was a big resource fair. You were there, you know, mock interviews. Teddy would talk social media. We'd have an attorney. John Pichelle actually helped us, and he was a guest as well on one of our shows. And Art would, if he was available, he'd come down the hall and we would do a panel discussion about job hunt related stuff. So he sat there as kind of the big picture guy, CEO, and would talk about company culture and some of the questions that he deals with. And actually, so when he retired at the start of January of 21, I gave him a little lag time to enjoy a little retirement before I put the lien on him. But anyway, he said, no. So anyway, it was about April or so of 21. He came on to talk about interviewing, and we've had a ton of people over the year talk about networking, interviewing recruiters and all that, but he had never had a CEO come in and talk about what they look for, the types of questions that they ask versus your standard HR or internal recruiter might ask, and some things that kind of turn them on and turn them off. So it was really insightful to get that kind of intel from a CEO, not just at Goodwill, but over at Haynes for many years. So just a really good, insightful conversation.
Wow. So along those lines, when I think back, I remember you had Catherine Perry, the executive director with Leadership Winston-Salem, Phyllis Caldwell-George of Financial Pathways of the Piedmont, Mark Owen, I think we mentioned him earlier a little bit. He was on there twice, right? And 3 times. Wow. That must have been very insightful, especially to hear the state of Greater Winston-Salem Inc. at this point. So can you share with us a little bit about what you remember from those conversations?
Sure, Teddy, you want to take a run? Yeah.
Yeah, from my perspective, I live in Advance, North Carolina, 9 miles west of Winston, but I call Winston-Salem home. And hang on, Todd, I'll answer your question in a minute. And that's home for me because, every Monday through Fridays, 7 o'clock in the morning back in the day, I'd leave my Advance and I'd make a left-hand turn, and go to Winston. And I'd hang out in Winston for 8, 9, 10 hours. And then I'd go back, make a right, and go back home. And for me, it was really cool to listen to people who are what I refer to as leaders. Some people call these the movers and shakers of our town, our community. And the stuff I would learn, I'm like, the stuff that's going on, the stuff that's happening. I'd get another perspective of economic development. I'd get another perspective of what's going on in the nonprofit world. That for me was fun. Randy says this all the time, and I echo what he says. Every daggone show, we'd learn something new. And that for me was another reason to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's like a lunch and learn. I say this, it's like a lunch and learn. We've all sat through some that we wish we hadn't, but it's like a lunch and learn, except we get to pick the topic and ask the questions. How cool is that? And we've had some, I don't want to say off the wall, but I'll say off the beaten path topics that just to find a subject matter expert. Thank goodness for LinkedIn, because I don't care if they're in Winston or and we've had them from Europe and Israel. We've had them all over the world. But one thing too it's kind of cool with bringing in somebody like let's say Mark Owens and whatnot is you're getting it straight from the person who's in a position to know. And yeah, there are going to be things that maybe they can't divulge because of projects in the works and whatnot, but you're getting it again straight from the top. And that it carries more weight, I guess, for lack of to cut to the chase, carries a little bit more weight when you can have the executive director, somebody who's really got the broad view, kind of knows where the bodies are buried kind of thing, and really can talk about projects that they're working on. Same thing with some of these nonprofits that Goodwill partners with Financial Pathways of the Piedmont. But yet I would venture to say 2/3 of or more of the local area has no idea what they do.
Right. Wow. Now I think there was, I'm sorry, Randy, I cut you off there. I think there was a question about who held the most appearances. I think Todd Porter asked that.
Well, I had to execute on some high level, data analytics to be able to get this, and I had to bring ChatGPT in to help review the numbers. But I have the numbers. Okay, here's the numbers.
Drum roll.
Tied for first place are 3 people: Lisa Lamb, Mike Fenley, and my good friend Cindy Martin.
Cindy.
Cindy Cindy, not only as a special guest, but also as a co-host. And in some respects, it was a candidate for a replacement for Randy. So Cindy also showed up and helped out with that as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
I mean, we also had Catherine Perry, Mark Owens, Melissa Hughes, Sarah Rosinski were on 3 times, and then a slew of really cool people, including Oriole and Rich Schlentz and Wanda Swain and Susan
Oh, yeah.
were on twice. So we had 45 shows with recurring special guests.
Wow.
We had 193 total unique special guests.
Wow.
And we had 24 shows where we had at least two people on the show at once.
Wow.
We had one
That
or two.
is notable.
Yeah. We had one. Your daughter was on with Nikkei and was it Christy Staten?
I think 3 or 4 guests that day. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about starting your own business.
Yeah.
Wow.
Side hustles.
Side hustles. Yeah. Yeah. We covered a
Wow.
lot of topics. So,
Well,
yeah,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Randy.
No, I was just going to echo what he said. I mean, part of anytime you have somebody back, it means it was a good. It's like, you're not going to get a second date unless the first date went well.
Right.
And so they had to enjoy themselves. We had to enjoy them, and both feel like it was a beneficial thing. So, yeah, it all worked out. Cindy's great, by the way, and
She
the
is.
kind of topics that she talks about with professionalism, body language, how we use our voice, how to eat properly. That's
always
remember one of the
all those things.
Remember one of the first shows we did, Randy, where I kept doing this, and
Oh.
Cindy called me out on that. She texted me and said, "Teddy, you're ignoring and I appreciate Cindy. I love Cindy. And
Cindy.
you're ignoring your audience when you're off writing on paper."
Cindy is necessary. Definitely necessary.
Same thing for fiddling with his baseball.
She hates Randy's baseball.
She doesn't like that. She doesn't like that.
She knows I'm playing, but she.
We're going to call them in your next show Cindyisms. You're going to have a whole section just on that. Okay. We're going to speak something into existence, which leads me to my next question. I'm looking at the time here and I see that we're winding down. But talk to us. Why is the show ending? That's what all the viewers want to know.
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Teddy quit paying the Zoom account, so I guess they're gonna shut us down.
Actually, I did quit paying the Zoom account.
We need more sponsorship.
No, man. It's not that. Here, I'll tell you my reasons, and then I'll let Randy share what his reasons are. My reasons are, and Randy knows this phrase, and I think some of the others on here who know me well, I've heard it say, I got to get the hell out of this chair. I'm 66 this coming July, and I've been planning this for 2 years. Okay, I know, Oreo. I use oil of Olay. You can't tell, girl. But so I've got to get out of this chair, and been planning my retirement for 2 years, and I'm going to go off, and I'm going to go out in the community. This is a project I'm putting together. I'm hoping I get it all put together. And I'm going to go out in the community and I'm going to help our older friends. And some of them are on here. I'm not going to call their names out loud, I'm going to go help that generation or two in front of me who are struggling. Where's my stuff? To use technology to have the conversations with the people they want to talk with. So I'm creating a program of going out to retirement centers, senior services, YMCAs, libraries, churches, et cetera, and meeting people who are struggling to use technology. And I'm going to do 2 things. Thank you, Melissa. I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to give them ideas that they can benefit from. I'm going to make them laugh. Because that generation of humans, they don't just want help with stuff. They want to have fun. They want to be in a group. They want to be included. And the test that I've done says clearly, Teddy, don't go teach, go help. And a part of help is to make them laugh.
That's wonderful.
That's a project I've been working on for a few years now. And I'm hoping by July to have it in place. And I got a lot of work between now and then to get it put together. So Randy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What's the reason you're quitting on me, dude?
I never got a pay raise. I mean, heck, everybody around me is getting a pay raise.
They say people leave their supervisors.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of it, I mean, we're a tag team. And when Teddy says, hey man, I got to get out of the chair. I mean, that's a big roadblock. I will tell you this, and Teddy mentioned this earlier on about when the show started, it was heavily dominated by people that were in a job search. That's what I do for a living. That's what I'm paid to do is to help people who are in that situation. Okay. Well, to Teddy's point, that number continued to drop and drop and drop and drop. So the impact
today.
Yeah. That the impact that I have that helps goodwill. Okay. Now I'm being very blunt here. When the show started, it was a great thing for me, for my program, Professional Center, because I was still able to help job hunters with their job search. But as the number of percent of job hunters in our audience dropped, and we also began to morph into, I'll just call fun business topics. Yeah, I did it during lunchtime, but it took time out of my week to get this stuff off the ground. And I felt like I couldn't count those people in the audience as clients served because they really weren't job hunters. And so really became more of just an entertainment thing. And you start to layer on the time involved with it. And something Teddy didn't mention, and I mean, we've done a good job with this thing. We've got almost 200 shows in the can here. And it's not like we have the same people on every week.
Right.
And it becomes a bit of a challenge to come up with topics and new speakers to talk about those topics. In addition to I have a regular job. And I'm also involved in politics. So I just got elected to office. So we can talk about that in a minute. But I got a lot of, I'm a lone wolf at the Professional Center. Susan and Ruth have retired. And so there's a lot going on. And between Teddy's desire to seek some other opportunity, and I have a full plate. So that's the core thing from my perspective, Teddy.
And there's also, Randy and I talked about this a few months ago. The show had a purpose.
Yep. It was
to help people during the pandemic. We served that purpose. And now both Randy and I, even though we love the show, we love our audience, we love our special guests, it's an absolute hoot to do it. There are other things that we are striving to go do, and we need to focus on the things that we believe will create more value moving forward.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I want to be sure that we get some of these comments in here. Like Dale, he says, kudos, gents. You'll be missed, but you clearly added tremendous value to your community and beyond. There's another message here from Todd Porter. He said, I'd just like to say I have thoroughly enjoyed these hours I've spent listening, learning, and enjoying the entertainment. Thank you, gentlemen. You've touched a lot of people. Job well done.
I would wager, and I can go back and do this research, I believe, that of all of our audience members, which is a huge number of people, Todd Porter may very well be our most diehard fan. I mean, I don't think there's a week that goes by that I don't see him showing up on there. Randy, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. We've had a lot of, and he's in our Winston-Salem SHRM organization. We've had a bunch of people from our chapter as not just in attending as an attendee, but also as guests.
Yes.
I want to make sure I work in some of these off the wall topics, but I will say this, some timely stuff that came into play remember with the George Floyd murder and just the rise of DEI. And we've had some great speakers that have brought that topic to light. Guys like Will Lewis, local, and Will's spoken to our SHRM chapter and also at the state level, Stan Kimmer, Carolyn Rose, Val Boston, good friend from years back. Again, known him for a long time, Catherine Miller. We've had employment attorneys on, again, very helpful guys like John Hyman, and John is a hoot. If you ever check out John with a no H in there, John Hyman on LinkedIn, Teddy. He's got a story almost every day about stupid things that happen in the workplace and lawsuits that just crazy stuff going on in the world. John Pichelle, I mentioned him earlier. Mike Wells Sr. and
Oh, yeah.
Roberta Latham. Also, Jason Stitt from Canada.
Mhm.
He was one of our speakers at a SHRM chapter a few years
Wow.
ago.
Yeah, I remember.
Who
Yep.
was the NASA lady? Remind me of the NASA lady. Beth.
Yeah, Beth was a college friend, or is a college friend, Beth Dickey down in Florida, but she had spent years in NASA and still does some consulting work for them in the communications marketing area. So she filled us in on the behind the scenes of NASA and what's coming up next. So that was cool. We had a comedian on. Teddy, remember the comedian?
Stan? No, not Stan.
Is it Sam?
Oh shoot, Randy.
We'll get it. Anyway, we'll get our crack research staff on it. But
Sid Davis, man.
Sid Davis. He did the show from his hotel, like on a cruise ship.
Cruise ship.
Oh, wow.
In his room on a cruise ship.
See, we all just stop for Randy and Teddy.
We
You
do.
see, it doesn't matter where we are. We just stop. If you all call us, we're like, we're there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and here's another thing that
Yeah.
the audience may not know. I think there was only one, maybe two, but I really believe there's only one show that was pre-recorded.
Oh,
Was
how
it-
did that work?
I
wanna
thought there was a piece of one, but I don't think it was both the whole show.
Yeah, it could have been. I remember
Yeah.
Melissa Hughes, who's on the show. I think one time she had a conflict with a meeting, so we recorded her. I want to say, was it Leslie Spees? We had somebody else, and then we had John Hyman, who had a medical family emergency. He was like an hour before the show. But we've been so fortunate
Yeah.
that our guests have shown up on time. We haven't had really any major technical snafus that I can think of
Awesome.
that have really derailed things. So
No,
Did you have any regrets about the show? Any regrets about the show?
No, the only I kind of wish that we had more resources. Burriss Consulting pays for all the tools, but that's only a small part of making this show successful. But if we could have garnered a higher level, longer term sponsor, this show could have rivaled the Late Show. And I'm being stupid with my analogy there, but we could have had more reach.
Yep.
We could have had, better visibility. We could have gotten, I was working forever, worked my butt off to get a superior court judge, state level and federal level. I mean, I got Miss Vickery on the show, a county state judge.
Yeah, district court judge.
District court
Here.
judge.
Yep.
But if we could have had more, if we could have had what Randy and I kept saying we need is an executive producer. We needed an executive producer, someone to take the show to another level. But then in hindsight, when we were talking about this and I was thinking about it, that would have been building this huge program that would have been even more work.
Yeah.
And I love what I do. I had a blast doing it, but you got to be careful of what you ask for. Because that would have been way bigger than I would have ever dreamed, or maybe have wanted to do it as I move into this retirement world.
Wow.
Yeah, if you'd talked to Teddy 10 years ago, maybe it would have been a different desire. So there's that small regret, I suppose. And I echo the same thing. I mean, if we had limitless cash and Teddy could afford to pay me.
Wait, what I heard you say, Randy, which would have been your other joke, if Teddy had been willing to spend his limitless cash.
Yeah. Yeah. We would have lived happily ever after. I'll tell you one thing though, too, is a regret, and it's a minor thing, but it is what it is. After a while, it seemed like no matter who we wanted to get on the show, we could get. I mean, we reach out to somebody and, executive director, this president, whatever, and they'd say, sure, let me check my calendar. And so I got to thinking, well, let's keep shooting a little higher and higher and higher. And I won't name names, all right, but let's just say there were about a half dozen or so people that, let's just say you would readily recognize who they are.
Yeah.
Readily recognize who they are. And I guess we just weren't quite big enough to get on their calendar. So that's a bit of a regret.
Yeah.
But, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah.
And so we thought we'd give it a shot. Again, I won't mention names, but Teddy knows a few of them, and maybe some that I just made up.
Yeah, but we did good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
dude, we did freaking fantastic bringing on people.
He did. So I do have two last questions for you, and also for our viewers today, especially in the chat. What has the show meant to you, and to the community? What do you think it's meant?
For me, it's just been fun. And Randy knows this, Cindy knows this, Dan knows this, Carrie knows this, Todd knows this. If you can't have fun doing it, freaking stop doing it. And that's not why we're stopping, but I'm just saying, for me, it has been an absolute enjoyment, a blast for me to have been doing it. To hear every now and then for someone to say, "Oh my gosh, thank you," for a special guest to say thank you, for a special guest to say, "Absolutely, I want to come back," and then for our audience to show up, through text messaging, emails, LinkedIn messages, phone calls, and say, "Oh my God, I had so much fun." That's important to me, because that means that at least one person every week got something out of it.
Right.
So
Right.
I
Randy,
agree.
what
Yeah.
about you?
I can't really add a whole lot to that. The fun part, I'll add to that also the relationship part.
Yeah.
The relationship that Teddy and I have developed over time, and we've only seen each other in person 3 or 4 times ish in the last almost 4 years. But we see each other and we talk on the phone probably a couple, 3 times a week, and we see each other a good bit. So there's not just the relationship that he and I have built, but also the fun engagement. And I'll use you, Oriel, as an example. I mean, I've known you forever, but just the idea that you thought enough of us to give of your time, in this case, being on vacation, to come in and being able to meet, even though it's virtual. Now, whenever I go, give an example. Whenever I go to an event, we had a big event at Goodwill a couple, 3 weeks ago, community conversation, and they had a panelist, a number of panelists. Dr. Spriggs from Forsyth Tech was there, right? So I went up and introduced myself to her, and she remembered me from the show, and we just chatted about what a great time we had, and it was so nice to see you actually in person, but little anecdotal things like that. When you're at other events and you see somebody that go, yeah, I've watched that show, or I heard you, my coworker was on it. So the relationship part too, I think is part that I don't want to overlook, because that's important in life.
Hey, Randy,
Yeah.
one more, Oriel. Randy, am I obligated to send you the certificate of appreciation, or are you going to send that to me?
It's in the mail, Teddy. Just trust me. It's in the mail.
Along with that extra check for Randy, I'm going to still advocate for you. We have
My severance pay. Am I going to get any severance pay out of this?
We have 2 minutes, so I'm going to advocate as much as I can for you, Randy. And we're all in the same area, so I feel drinks or something. We got to do something to get that extra pay for you. What would be your end takeaway, that one nugget that you two would like to leave with everyone today?
Here's mine. If you have an idea, work it. Talk to people about it. Have a conversation about it. Randy knows my headline over top of my office. He knows what it says. Cindy knows what it says. Everybody who shows up knows what it says. It all starts with conversation. You have an idea about doing something, just freaking go do it. Randy says, "Teddy, I'm bored." And this isn't the exact words. "I'm bored. I want to do something. Let's do a show." I said, "Let's go." So look, Randy and I are not experts at productions of shows. We just went off and did it, and it was a blast to do. Could it have been bigger? Maybe, but you know what? That's irrelevant. It was an absolute blessing for me to be involved in it. And I say the worst thing to do is think about doing something and not trying to do it.
I remember years ago when I decided to try to get into the career coaching business, and be self-employed. I didn't want to wake up at age 60 and look back and wonder what if. There was no guarantee it was going to work, but it was an idea, to Teddy's point. And so for me anyway, it's been a way to blend the joy of media and speaking and writing and but also to inform, to engage, to inspire people, whether they're in a job search or just to give them some information, walking around stuff that they didn't know when they woke up that day. And if we can be the vessel that kind of brings that to them, that's pretty cool stuff. Because a lot of guys go through life, their head buried in the cubicle, and they wake up dead one day. And I didn't want to do that, and neither did Teddy.
I have no desire to ever go visit another cubicle.
Hey, Teddy, look at the time.
Yeah, we pulled it off.
Is lunch on you?
What did we miss?
I think we got. Hey, we've had a blast, folks. No tears, no long goodbyes or anything like that. We're good friends. We'll always be good friends. Oriel, same with you.
Yes.
But chapters, and I mentioned the politics. I'm now with the Village of Council and councilman, so that's going to occupy a bit of my extra time, and some other boards that I'm part of, to include Leadership Winston committees and also the SHRM board. So. I'll let it go at that, Teddy. It's been a blast, man. It's 4 years,
buddy.
almost in the can, almost 200 shows. Loving it, man. Just
We'll
had a
get
great
together
time.
again here soon. I'm sure of it. So to our audience, really, this show would have been of no value if you didn't show up, if you didn't watch us on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. So I personally, I believe I can echo for Randy, am blessed and grateful that you all have shown up and participated. And to our special guests and someone in the audience today, thank you. Oreo, my friend, thank you very much for helping us pull this together.
My pleasure.
Everybody go off and enjoy 2024 and say hi sometime again in another day, and keep track of what Randy and I are up to.
All right. Be good. Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.